All right, so yeah, I think if we just highlight all 32 teams, do a quick, team needs, team wants, just kind of get in and out there, get our opinions out there, that'd probably be good enough. What do you think?
Oh yeah, it'll be quick. We'll knock it
All
out.
right. All right, cool. I'll give you a call back in about an hour. We'll take care of this video.
All right, sounds good. Talk to you
All
then.
right, later, man.
Oh, I'm so glad that's over with. Oh.
Kyle, your camera's on. Oh, crap. What is going on, Headliner Nation? Jake and Kyle back at you again. And today, Kyle, it's time for us to be a little bit greedy, right? The NFL draft is right around the corner, and we're not going to be doing a mock draft. We're going to be looking at some team needs and some players and where we want them to go. That's kind of going to be a little bit more fun because it gets a little hard every once in a while trying to do all these mock drafts because, to be completely honest, it's almost impossible not to butthurt an entire fan base with just one pick in a mock draft.
Yeah, I'm over the mock drafts. We're not going to be able to guess where any of these guys are going. This is already a crazy draft as it is, and we're not even to draft day at this point. And there's no trades either. It's just a crazy draft with how it's going to be taken care of through Skype or Microsoft Teams, however they plan on doing it. But for us, we're going to go ahead and talk about what we want to happen because that's the most fun, talking about how we would like to see the draft play out for a variety of reasons.
Yep, absolutely. So we're going to go through all 32 teams, give you a quick, what would we like to see happen for each team scenario, and get through them as quick as we possibly can. Like we said, the draft is right around the corner. And speaking of the draft, we're going to be live streaming the first round on Thursday night. So come in 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. We'll get in here just before the draft starts. Myself, Kyle, a couple other the guys from Headliner Nation, they're going to be here in studio with me. We're going to have a good time. We're going to watch the draft together, and we'll give you some live feedback as it's happening. The TV with the draft will be about 3 feet, 8 inches away from my face, and we'll be watching it together, so it's going to be a good time. Make sure you click the little bell notification icon so you know as soon as we go live. Also, if you're into fantasy football, our draft guide's for sale right now on our website. You can pre-order it right now. It's scheduled to release right around June 30th. Once this draft is over, it'll give us time to absolutely slam pack it full of information. Last year had almost 500 virtual pages of fantasy football bliss. But for now, Kyle, we're talking all 32 teams, and why not go in alphabetical order? A lot of people not in school right now, so we're going to try to practice our ABCs a little bit. Number one, starting off with the Arizona Cardinals. This one for me, it's hard because I am a fan, born and raised in Arizona. In my opinion, what do they need? Offensive line. That's an absolute must. But my inner fan kind of wants to see some rumors that happen here this week with Christian Kirk being traded, and then them still going after CeeDee Lamb. That kind of makes my tail wag also.
Yeah, and honestly, I want to see them invest in the offensive line. Yes, the trading of Kirk and bringing in CeeDee Lamb is exciting for many different reasons. But you've got so many weapons there already. Let's get the offensive line. They're going to be really the first team up that needs an offensive lineman outside of, the Giants could, yes, end up taking one. The Miami Dolphins, yes, could end up taking one, but they're going to be in a position with a little bit better names on the boards at other positions. So Arizona at 1.08 in the first round, they're going to have their pick of the litter more than likely, unless New York probably decides to go with an offensive lineman there.
Yep, agreed. All right, now the Atlanta Falcons, no longer the Dirty Birds, but this one kind of has me a little bit perplexed. When we first started doing mock drafts, we were always looking for that edge rusher, right? Trying to create pressure on the quarterback because they're in a division with Tom Brady and Drew Brees, and now Teddy Bridgewater, Christian McCaffrey. Create that pressure. Well, they got Todd McKinley, they got Dante Fowler, but what else do they need? Well, how about a secondary that needs a little bit of help? Because with those quarterbacks in this division, I can see a lot of passing happening. They're going to have to try to lock that down if they want to have any chance here in this division.
Falcons fans kind of need to get together and decide what they want, because when we first started doing the mock drafts, we had edge rusher, and they were like, nope, we don't need an edge rusher. We need something else. So then our last mock draft, we said, we are going to end up going cornerback here. And then everyone was like, no, we need an edge rusher. What are you talking about? So the Falcons fans don't know what they want. But yes, you just called it. They did end up addressing the defensive or the edge, the pass rush a little bit in free agency. So why not go ahead, go cornerback in the first round? The last person that we ended up mocking there, Christian Fulton from LSU. Really like him, one of the top corners outside of Akuda this year. So, I mean, that would be a great spot for them to take them. But it's also being talked about that they are looking to aggressively move up in the draft. And I've heard people say they could go into the top 5 picks.
And that would be very, very interesting if that were able to happen. I mean, like you said, a lot of rumors coming out that the Falcons are going to be one of the most aggressive there on draft day. Definitely something to pay attention to. All right, next, the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, you can kind of look at their team and be like, all right, what do they really need? Well, they lost Marshall Yanda off the offensive line, a Hall of Fame guard. Do they look to fill that need to continue to make sure this is one of the best offensive lines in all of football, to protect Lamar Jackson and to build off that running game? I mean, do they look for a little bit more pass rush since it fell through with Michael Brockers? There's a few different ways that it can go. I think as much fun as we had watching the Ravens this year, a lot more of that excitement was on the offensive side because of Lamar Jackson. Personally, I would rather them invest, in a late round pick here, going after an interior offensive lineman just to keep it stable.
Me personally, I really would like to see them go wide receiver. With their pick being at the end of the first round, though, I don't know if they're going to be able to get that top end wide receiver. So I'm thinking maybe in the second round or a different pick later on, depending on how some of the dominoes fall. They could end up going with a wide receiver then. Um, the one thing I'd like to see them do in the first round, though, is just continue to build that defense up. If one of those top wide receivers don't end up getting to them somehow, which more than likely they won't, then go with the defense. You have some really good edge rushers at the end of the first round. That's what Baltimore has always been known for, is their defense. Bring that identity back a little bit to go with the offense as well, and then just stabilize yourself for another terrific playoff run.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up, we got the Buffalo Bills. And now the Bills have Stephon Diggs. What do they not have is a first-round pick. And they are probably right now the front runners. Would you say that the front runners maybe in this division, now that Tom Brady's no longer in New England and New England no longer looks like New England? There's not a whole lot of holes in Buffalo. Wherever they draft, and I said holes, not hoes, just so you guys are making sure you're paying attention. I want to make sure I'm equal opportunity here. But, wherever they draft somebody, it's going to be an improvement. It maybe not be a need, because there are not very many needs in Buffalo. They're returning their entire offensive line. Josh Allen has his weapons. They have a solid young running back in the backfield. They have one of the best cover corners in all of football in Tre'Davious White. I mean, they have a solid overall roster right here. Honestly, they're just going to be looking for best player available. And without having a first-round pick, that's not going to be a bad strategy for them, just to take round by round and go from there.
Yeah, definitely. I see them working on the defense, either edge or interior defensive line when their first pick comes up. We did talk about a wide receiver a lot until they ended up trading for Stephon Diggs. So that isn't nearly a need anymore for them. There's a little bit of talk about running backs as well. I would not be surprised if they invested a mid-round pick in a running back to back up Devin Singletary. It's not what a lot of people want to hear, because I want to see Devin Singletary go off this season, but they're probably going to get somebody to come in and be there with him to help carry that load.
Agreed. Carolina. They have a few needs, but they were pretty active. They brought in Teddy Bridgewater now, but a lot of leadership left this team. No Luke Kuechly, no more Cam Newton, Greg Olsen. A lot of new faces in Carolina, and who's really going to be the leader on the defensive side of the football? Also lost James Bradbury, their top corner. In my opinion, this has to be on the defensive side of the football. They were one of the worst run defenses in all of football. They really need to shore up that interior defensive lineman. In some of the past mocks, we've had some players like, Derek Brown go there to really stabilize that defensive line, to give them something up front, because last year there was hardly any defense whatsoever.
Yeah, my pick for them in the first round with their first pick is Derek Brown. That's what I would like to see them do. Cornerback is another option I could see them going as well. There could potentially be a team that wants to trade up with them too, and then they decide to move back. So I think they're in one of those positions too, where a team could try to jump up in front of the Cardinals, the Buccaneers, and the Browns, who are all looking at offensive tackles. a team behind them that really wants to get up there as well. And it's not Tampa Bay. We moved Tampa Bay up until Jacksonville. Jacksonville is actually the team. Arizona, Jacksonville, and Cleveland. But if Tampa Bay wanted to move up, that could be a landing spot for them as well, because we mocked Tampa up to Jacksonville last time, so they could get up there into that area with some of those offensive tackles. So I think they're really in one of those spots where they're going to take best defensive player available, or they're going to end up trading back.
Yep. What about the Cincinnati Bengals? Now, worst team in football, number 1 overall pick, unanimously more than likely going to be Joe Burrow. I don't even know if I want to include saying, hey, they need a quarterback at this point, because I think it's almost as close to set in stone as possible. But what else do they need outside of quarterback? I mean, they have Andy Dalton still, which is not, in my opinion, a horrible backup at this point if they draft Joe Burrow. The defensive side of the football, they could use some help. Their offensive line has improved. Don't forget last year's number 1 pick in the first round for them, Jonah Williams. He'll be back. He missed last season due to injury, so that kind of helps their offensive line getting him back. On the defensive side of things, though, I mean, they have Carlos Dunlap, Geno Atkins, but outside of that, not a whole lot. They really need to try to find that leader on the defensive side of the football, possibly at the linebacker position, to really solidify that defense overall.
Yeah, the problem with Cincinnati is they really missed on the defensive side of the ball in some of these past drafts. They've either had some guys taken before them, like last year, Pittsburgh getting up there and getting a hold of Devin Bush. Devin Bush was a player that a lot of people thought could end up getting there. Didn't end up happening. They've had some cornerbacks not work out. But after Joe Burrow at number 1 overall, all the rest of the picks is going to have to be defense from them. They need help at linebacker. They need help on the edge. They need help on the interior defensive line. There's some people who are saying they don't need to draft Joe Burrow. They need to draft Chase Young instead. Not going to end up happening because quarterbacks are, the way of the world right now in the NFL. But after that, Joe Burrow, they're going to need to work on their defense as much as possible. You already talked about the offensive line being a lot better. Joe Mixon being there, lots of wide receiver weapons that they have. The offense is going to be fine, but they're going to have to stop teams, which they're probably not going to be really good at this year.
Another team that's not going to be really good at some things, the Chicago Bears. I honestly have no idea what they're thinking. At this point, I mean, they got Jimmy Graham here in the offseason. That doesn't thrill me. They got Nick Foles. That doesn't thrill me. They got Mitch Magic under center as of right now, but Foles will push him for that job. We know about the letdown of David Montgomery in year 1. Tariq Cohen still there. A average to below average offensive line. A defense that is very sporadic and inconsistent at times. And they don't have a first-round pick. So what identity are we taking into Chicago? Honestly, I don't know if anybody, even in Chicago, has an idea what this identity is going to be. But in my opinion, if they're going to find any success, no matter who the quarterback is, he's going to have to be protected. And they're going to have to start utilizing a run game. In my opinion, offensive line is where they're going to have to look here in the draft.
Yeah, offensive line, especially on the interior, good. I really think they need to focus on that defensive secondary, though. They really need to bring in some guys who are going to help shut down the passing game. I mean, you've got Matthew Stafford there, and who knows, maybe the Lions will be stupid and actually draft Tua. I don't know. I'm ready to blow up on that pick if it happens, though. So, but you got Matthew Stafford in that division. You got Kirk Cousins in that division. You've got Aaron Rodgers in that division, okay? Some quarterbacks that can sling it. So you're going to have to be able to stop them if you want to compete. Really think that defensive secondary is where they need to focus up.
Yep, the Cleveland Browns. One of these teams who could move this pick on draft day. Would not surprise me if they did. It may actually be the smarter option here going into the draft for them. And we said it ever since last season, right? We need to work on the offensive line. Well, they brought in Jack Conklin here in free agency, which was huge for that offensive line. They still have a need at left tackle, and there's a chance that one of their guys falls to them here in the first round of the draft. Now, do they take that offensive lineman, that young offensive lineman, or do they move back in the draft, get one of the guys a little bit later on, a little bit further down the list, and continue to stockpile picks and get a little bit younger? A lot of rumors come out about Odell Beckham going different places. If it doesn't come from Ian Rappaport or Adam Schefter, I basically ignore it at this point because everybody and their mother is on Twitter acting like they have sources. No, you don't. Shut up and quit tweeting it. It's to the point now where it's getting a little bit crazy, but In my opinion, if it were me, if I were the Browns, if my guy, my number one rated offensive lineman wasn't there, I'm trading this pick and trading back. They got a lot of places, to improve on. But overall, they're a pretty young team with a lot of talent.
Yeah, I mean, you could make an argument that they need to improve on defense first, but I don't think where they will end up drafting, unless there's a shakeup at the top and some guys start to fall, I don't think you're going to see the defensive players there that are worth drafting over the offensive tackles that are going to be there. So 100%. I'm with you on board, taking a tackle in that first round. Continue to work on that offensive line. I made a tweet the other day about Nick Chubb. Dude ran for over 1,400 yards last year, the fifth most of any running back since 2013. Feed the ball to Chubb this year. Protect Mayfield so he has time to throw. I mean, those are your investments right now. You have all the weapons on offense. Yes, you'll have to stop people on defense, but I don't think your defense is going to be that bad this year. Get some guys for that a little bit later.
Yeah, you look at their defense, and they have some solid players. I mean, we know Myles Garrett's there when he's not flinging helmets at people. Larry Ogunjobi, Sheldon Richardson, Olivier Vernon, Mac Wilson, Denzel Ward, Carl Joseph, Andrew Sendejo, who they brought in here in the offseason, Grady Williams. They got talent on the defensive side of the football. Trading the pick back if they're number one offensive lineman is not a bad idea in my mind. Now, the Dallas Cowboys are up next, and the Dallas Cowboys, another one of these teams who you're starting to hear a few rumors about that could be active on draft day. I've heard rumors of, trading for Christian Kirk to the Arizona Cardinals, to fill that slot void ever since Randall Cobb left, to go there with Gallup and Cooper. That's very intriguing. Does Christian Kirk require a first-round pick? No, probably not. But then again, in the state of Texas, you never know what's going to happen with the GMs and owners. They could just ship people around for whatever they want to. But in my opinion, it's a big loss on the offensive line for Dallas with Travis Fredericks. He's gone here after this season in a surprising retirement. On the defensive side of the ball, they need to improve a little bit, right? But look at the division they're in. They're in the division with a couple teams as of 2019 whose offenses weren't great, right? Philadelphia, Washington, the Giants. All those teams could take a step forward this year, and the Dallas Cowboys are going to have to continue to keep their foot on the pedal this year on the defensive side of things. I think they got to go defense here early if they're not going to make a trade.
Yeah, I mean, the perfect fit for Dallas, the perfect fit is Cesar Ruiz from the University of Michigan. He's going to be playing center more than likely during his NFL career. He would be exactly who they need to add. He could also switch out and play guard too. He's versatile in that sense. But they're going to want to hope that he falls to their second round pick at 19 overall in the second round, because that's a little bit high for him. I do think he's a top of the second round graded player right now, but again, just a little bit high. So with where they're currently drafting, definitely defense. I think there's going to be several defensive players there in that area around the 17th pick. Jeff Gladney, who we had going there last time out of TCU, one of the better cornerbacks in this draft, definitely would be a great pick for them.
Yep. All right. The Denver Broncos up next, and my inner fantasy football fan says this has got to be a wide receiver. They got to have somebody opposite of Courtland Sutton to really give Drew Lock in his first full season as a starter some options, right? Because right now he's got Courtland Sutton, he's got Noah Fant, but outside of that, he doesn't have a whole lot. Now that they've brought in Melvin Gordon in the backfield, getting him another weapon on the outside to really pull defenders outside of the box could be probably one of the best friends for Drew Lock.
Yeah, and I didn't love the idea of a wide receiver going there early when we did our first couple of mock drafts, because I really wanted them to focus on cornerback, especially with the division that they are in. However, Henry Ruggs seems to be their guy. There's talk about them even moving up to draft Henry Ruggs. Now, I think them moving up would be a colossal mistake, because they're going to have to give up some capital they probably don't need to, and a draft that is really, really deep at wide receiver. I mean, if you want your guy, go get your guy. I'm not going to argue against that. But go with a wide receiver here in the first round. Get Drew Lock as weapons. I like Drew Lock. I think he can be a very good NFL quarterback. I don't think he's going to be top 5 or even top 10. Definitely a guy, though, that's going to be able to get the job done for them if they have the weapons around him.
Yep. Next up, your team, Kyle, the Detroit Lions.
If they draft Tua and we're live, I'm throwing something. You thought I got upset about TJ Hawkinson last year. You just wait. If they draft Tua, I'm done.
You're gonna lose it. Do I
I'm
need to have my
ripping this
finger on the
Cooper
mute
jersey
button?
out of my out of the case back here, and I'm pledging my allegiance to the Dallas Cowboys if that happens.
You can't do that.
I can't do that. Why can't I do that?
No, you can't. You can't be a
I
Cowboys
can do
fan.
whatever I want to.
It's a horrible decision. I mean, honestly, though, what do you want to see the Lions do?
I want to see Isaiah Simmons.
Yep.
I want to see Isaiah Simmons. Super versatile. He's exactly what a defense that doesn't have a lot of playmakers needs, because he can do everything. Isaiah Simmons, he can line up at linebacker. He can go into the slot. He can go out to corner. He can play safety. He can play in the box. He can play out of the box. He can stop there. He can do anything that you want him to do on defense. This team doesn't have a whole lot of playmakers. Their biggest playmaker, Darius Slay, is now gone. So they're going to need somebody in the middle of that defense to really be the voice, to be a guy that they can move around, do a lot of different things with. Yes, I know that there's talk about Jeffrey Okudah. Yeah, I mean, he would be a good pick. I don't have anything against Okudah, but I think Simmons can be a difference maker. I think Simmons could become for the Lions what Tyrann Mathieu has been for, whether it be the Cardinals or whether it be, for the Chiefs last year. He can be the same type of player that can do a lot of different things and be a leader on that side of the ball. That is what I want to happen.
Yeah, I mean, hands down, he's the best option there for them. The Green Bay Packers up next. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, the clock is ticking, right? He's got to do something. And obviously the past drafts of MVS and Equanimeous St. Brown, they brought in Devin Funchess. Why the hell would you bring in Devin Funchess? They need help catching the football. I mean, who else do they really have outside of Davante Adams in a running game? Now, the running game is great, and it bailed them out a lot last year. But I think another weapon on the outside is what a lot of people want to see. I think it's the sexier pick, is to bring in another one of these top wide receivers to give Aaron Rodgers another weapon. However, all that is another young wide receiver that's not guaranteed of anything in this offense. I mean, Aaron Rodgers has proven in the past that if he doesn't trust you, he's not throwing you the football. He doesn't care what your stats were at the combine. And right now, Davante Adams is somebody who he's going to be locked into, but I still think they need another playmaker on the outside.
Yeah, wide receiver. This is wide receiver 100% all the way. They need to get Aaron Rodgers another weapon. Right now, towards the end of the first round, where they're going to be picking, more than likely you're going to be looking at one of the leftover wide receivers. Maybe a Denzel Mims ends up falling that far. Jalen Reagor will probably more than likely be there. It depends on what other wide receivers you have with a first round grade as well. A lot of different things can happen there at the end of the first round. Maybe a T. Higgins, if they say, well, we value T. Higgins, maybe he ends up slipping into the first round. So, but that's what they need. They need a wide receiver. They need another weapon.
Yep, gives them that other option. Next up, the Houston Texans. And no idea what Bill O'Brien is thinking. In my opinion, what they need to spend their top few early round picks on, whatever they got, they need to draft a training staff, because this entire roster is going to be injured the entire year, and they're going to have issues. You got Randall Cobb, Kenny Stills, who could be on the way out, Brandon Cooks, Will Fuller. I mean, there's problems in the receiving core. Are they going to draft a wide receiver? Probably not. I mean, I don't see that. They got David Johnson in the backfield. The offensive line outside of, Laramie Tunsil could use some improvements. They have needs all over the place, though. I mean, they struggle with injuries on a yearly, basis, and they just don't have that depth anywhere. Honestly, there's not a position on this roster that you couldn't draft right now and be like, they could challenge for the starting spot outside of maybe J.J. Watt if he's healthy. They have needs all over the place. It's going to be one of these drafts for the Texans that best player available whenever they come up on the clock.
Yeah, and with their first pick at the top half of the second round, defense is where I see them end up going. Work on the defensive line, whether it be the interior or the edge, probably the position that they're at. Do you have a couple of interior defensive linemen with high second round grades that can end up falling there if they don't end up going to some of the teams in front of them? But if not, a guy that we had going there, Joshua Uche from Michigan. Talked about Michigan twice this time. I'm sorry. Yes, I'm a Michigan fan, but he's a guy that I could see end up falling there. A great athlete that can do a lot of different things on the edge. But there's also Ross Blacklock from TCU that could end up going there as well if he were to end up following. But I definitely think it's that defensive line they work on.
Agreed. Coming up next, the Indianapolis Colts, who they don't have a first-round pick either. Traded that in return for the DeForest Buckner trade, which was a great trade. I mean, you hate to give up first-round draft picks with this much talent, but I think they actually got something out of it, so you can't really fault them for that. Their defense is very underrated. I think another one of these teams, though, that you can't just do it with just T.Y. Hilton. They brought in, Phillip Rivers, but they also needed a young quarterback. This is going to be another team that they're not going to rely on Phillip Rivers forever. Obviously, they got another, year or two out of him. Jacoby Brissett, what are they going to do with him in the future? In my opinion, I think the Colts, with one of their first picks in this draft, they look at one of the young quarterbacks that are left on the board.
Yep. I'm thinking that they're going to end up going quarterback. I'm getting this sense that if Jordan Love somehow gets into the second round, that it could end up being him. Hearing a lot about Jake Fromm right now, who I definitely think Fromm is severely underrated. I don't think he's going to be a guy that wins any MVP awards, but I definitely think that he could be a guy that is just a good NFL quarterback. And that's all he does. He's just a good NFL quarterback. Sit there behind Rivers for a year and learn a little bit. I could see that happening there in the second round, that's where Indianapolis goes. Instead of getting another wide receiver in a draft that's going to be very deep with wide receivers, they could probably get another one that could come in and help out a little bit later.
Yeah, get a young quarterback in there, Phillip Rivers. It's going to make him feel like he's got his 13th kid or whatever it is. The Kansas City Chiefs up next. And I got to admit it, I'm going to say this from some type of bias. I want a running back in Kansas City. Now, I know you just did a video on the channel about possible sleepers, and one of them being Damian Williams if they don't draft a running back, but I would love the likes of a J.K. Dobbins or even a Clyde Edwards-Helaire to fall to Kansas City. A great pass-catching running back out of the backfield to kind of give us what we saw with Kareem Hunt a few years ago. I would love to see that there.
Yeah, I'm gonna still stick on that defensive side of the ball. This is an area where Trayvon Diggs could end up falling at the end of the first round, but they have a really good offense, right? We know how great their offense is going to be. They're going to score a lot of points. When you score a lot of points, the other team is going to tend to throw the ball quite a bit to keep up with you. They need to continue to work on that defense a little bit. That's why Trayvon Diggs, I think, could end up being good here. If they want to look at the offensive line again, an interior offensive line here, what they need, and Cesar Ruiz could end up going here to play center or guard or whatever they need out of him. But again, Trayvon Diggs is kind of that pick that I'm looking at the end of the first round that I think fits them best.
Agree. The Chargers up next. The Chargers pretty active in free agency, right? We know there's no more Melvin Gordon, but we like Austin Eckler and Justin Jackson there. Their offensive line, not bad either. They brought in Trey Turner in the trade with Carolina. They have Brian Bulaga there now. They have weapons in Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Hunter Henry. They got some playmakers on the defensive side of the football with Joey Bosa, Linval Joseph, Melvin Ingram, Casey Hayward. They brought in Chris Harris from Denver. I mean, overall, a very solid team for the Chargers. Do I love Tyrod Taylor as the quarterback? No, he's not the future. In my opinion, I can still see a Justin Herbert, a Tua early in the draft for the Chargers. And why do I say that? The Chargers have struggled in the past with filling up stadiums, right? They got to put butts in the seats. They have a solid team. They're going to have to get that name value guy to put the butts in the seats, and a Tua or a high-profile quarterback would do that. Are they the answer? That kind of remains to be seen, but I still think they go quarterback.
They're going quarterback. It's either going to be Tua or it's going to be Justin Herbert. That's who it's going to be.
Well, great in-depth analysis there, Kyle. Let's move on next to the Los Angeles Rams. Then we'll stay in Los Angeles. The Rams, basically their Super Bowl window opened and closed in 1 year just a couple years ago because they're just unloading everybody. I mean, Todd Gurley gone. Brandon Cooks is gone. I mean, it's just a mess for the Rams right now. What do they need? Well, they got Cooper Kupp. They got Robert Woods. Outside of that, it gets a little thin. You go to Josh Reynolds, not bad. Offensive line, it's a solid offensive line. Who's their running back right now? Is it Darrell Henderson? Probably. I mean, there's another opportunity to have somebody drafted here. Malcolm Brown also there. Michael Brockers is back now after his failed trade to the Ravens. Ashawn Robinson new into town. Leonard Floyd new into town. I mean, they got needs all over, which is crazy to think about because this team was, the top of the NFC just a couple years ago. And now you look at their roster, and they have holes. I mean, there's some work on the offensive line that could be done. They could use another wide receiver. They could use a running back. Looking at their linebacking staff, I mean, they could use another linebacker also here for the Rams.
Yeah, they have needs all over the place. So really, whatever they do, they can't go wrong with. Their big thing here is they just need to make sure that they evaluate talent well. Because if they do that and they fill some of these gaps with guys that don't have the highest grade from other teams, but they got to find some hidden gems. That's what they have to do, because they're paying an awful lot of money to their quarterback and guys who aren't even there anymore.
Yep, agreed. Jacksonville Jaguars up next, and it's been very interesting to watch on social media here the past couple of days with Yannick Ngakoue. I think that's how you say it. I mean, he's basically just arguing with management at this point, just begging to be traded. That would definitely open up a huge need on the defensive line. I mean, they already lost Calais Campbell. They lose Ngakoue. They would definitely have to fill that spot. On the defensive side of football is where they're going to have to go, though. I mean, Gardner Minshew looks like he's going to be their quarterback here this year. They got enough young talent at the wide receiver position with Conley and Chark and Dede Westbrook. Overall, the offensive line, average to above average. They brought in Tyler Eifert, who, if he could stay healthy, would be great. That's just a big question mark. Leonard Fournette, is he a draft day trade? There's a lot of rumors going around that he could be. Does that mean that there's a need at the running back position? Right now, though, the way things sit, I'm going with defensive line or trading back for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I feel like we've said this in all of our mocks so far, right? For Jacksonville, it's about getting back to that identity they had a couple of years ago when they were a playoff team and getting that defense to where it was at that point. So that's what they need to focus on in this draft, is getting that defense back to where it was a couple of years ago when they were competing.
Yep. Dolphins up next. Dolphins are going to be really exciting because another one, we talked about the Bills a little bit earlier in that division. Miami, if they get the draft right, if Miami gets the draft right, we could be 1 year from saying, hey, they're tanking from Tua to competing for the division.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of talent in Miami right now. They've been very active in free agency here in the offseason with all those first-round picks. If they nail them all, could be a very exciting team to watch. Now, obviously, Ryan Fitzpatrick, probably not the quarterback of the future. They traded for Josh Rosen last year. Josh Rosen is Josh Rosen and basically still sucks, so he's probably not going to see the field. This is just one of those situations where I can see them kind of rebuilding the offense in this draft. A quarterback, a running back, and a wide receiver all at some point. Are they all going to be in the first round? No, probably not. If I had to guess, there may be an offensive lineman kind of just like sprinkled in there somewhere. But I see a lot of, just like that. I see a lot of offensive firepower coming the way of Miami here in 2020.
Yeah. My wish list for them: get your quarterback for the future, get you an offensive lineman, one of the top offensive linemen. You've got 3 first-round picks. If you got to use one to get up somewhere and get your guy, 100% go with that. That's fine. But get your quarterback, get your offensive lineman, and then at that point, you're just playing with house money because you've got a lot of draft capital to do a lot of different things.
That's right. Minnesota Vikings up next. Who's going to be opposite of Adam Thielen? I mean, right now it's Olabisi Johnson. That doesn't really strike fear into the name of a whole lot of people, Kyle. Olabisi Johnson probably. I mean, they brought in Tajay Sharp. Not overly excited about that either. We love Dalvin Cook. We've loved Dalvin Cook for a few years. You got Kirk Cousins there in a decent offensive line, at times very inconsistent. They lost some playmakers on the defensive side. Xavier Rhodes wasn't what he used to be, but now that he's no longer there, they're going to need help in the secondary. They're going to need help all over on the defensive side of football. Let's just be realistic. But in the secondary, I think is where they're going to have to look early in the draft.
Yeah, you're paying Kirk Cousins a lot of money. You might as well get him the weapons that he needs to earn that money, because depending on who you talk to, no one thinks Kirk Cousins has earned that money yet. So get him some weapons, get him some guys to make plays so he can earn that money for you, because you're paying him a lot.
Yep. New England Patriots up now. And why do I have that feeling, Kyle? I have that feeling. And I ate Taco Bell for dinner, and it's not that type of feeling.
Can I just tell you, the Patriots are not moving up to number 3. It's not happening. That garbage on Twitter, that's not happening.
I'm not worried about moving up to 3. I'm just talking about moving up in general. And they're gonna draft a quarterback, aren't they?
They should. I think that they should. A lot of people feel that that's going to happen, but this isn't a team that, in the past has decided to do that. But however, this is a new Patriots team that we're looking at, because I mean, the good thing is in 2020, at least they'll look good. I like the new uniforms.
They're very patriotic, which is fitting since their name are the Patriots.
Well, yeah, they have
But yeah.
they have a lot of work to do in a lot of different places. But yeah, a quarterback 100% could end up happening. I think I'd rather have them focus elsewhere and build up everything. And then if they're really bad this year, then make that move next year.
Bold call. Patriots move up and draft Justin Herbert. All right. Next team up we got is the New Orleans Saints. Another one of these teams that they're loaded, right? I mean, and they have to be because of the division they're in, going up against Tampa Bay and Atlanta. A lot of offense in this division. And let's be realistic, Drew Brees isn't getting much younger. He doesn't have very many more years left in him. Their window is going to be closing rapidly. Also, they brought in Emmanuel Sanders, which was great as far as the offensive side of the football. I expect Alvin Kamara to be healthier this year. We already know about Michael Thomas. They still have Jared Cook, one of the top offensive lines in all of football. A solid overall defense. However, I still think the focus has to stay on the defensive side of the ball to really limit the amount of possible shootouts that they could get into. I mean, we know that they're going to score a lot of points in New Orleans. You don't want to get, in a shootout going back and forth with Tom Brady or Matt Ryan too many times a year. I mean, that's 4 games a season right there just between those two teams. I think they got to stay on defense here.
Yeah, linebacker or cornerback. If the top cornerback options are gone, then Kenneth Murray is a dream landing spot here. If not, then they make a move for that cornerback. But again, linebacker, getting a captain for the middle of that defense, I think is a good shot for them.
The Giants are up next, and if you've seen Dave Gettleman's setup by now on social media, he's got his big old binder ready to go. I mean, everybody with these elaborate setups, and I feel like I'm more technology advanced than an NFL GM at this point. Dude's got a 3-ring binder and a bottle of Aveeno lotion. That's what's going on right now in New York, and they get an opportunity to go out there. If the Lions pass on Simmons, I have to think that Simmons goes to the Giants. They have a solid overall offense. They're starting to see some rumors going back and forth about possible quarterback, which is, I can't see that happening. I mean, I know that the Cardinals set that precedent with Rosen and Murray, but they're not going to draft a quarterback in New York. I can't see that happening. A decent offensive line that could be improved also if their guy is not there on the board. Plenty of wide receiver weapons for Daniel Jones. And they made some moves here in the offseason to boost up their defense with James Bradbury coming in. Definitely something where, in my opinion, an Isaiah Simmons, an offensive lineman, or I'm moving out.
Yeah, no, Simmons is a good pick there. Personally, I want to see them invest in the offensive line. You spent a lot of draft capital on Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. Protect those guys. Protect Barkley. Give him the room to run. Protect Daniel Jones so he's not having to throw with defenders in his face all the time. He has decent receiving weapons there. I've got nothing against the receiving weapons. Ingram, if he's healthy, even though they've talked about trading him apparently, if he's healthy, he's a great weapon. Shepard's still there. Tate's there. Darius Slayton, one of our favorite breakouts from last year, definitely is a great deep threat for him. So protect those weapons. Get an offensive lineman.
Next up is the Jets. And what I like to call this is the first person to be drafted for Adam Gase to ruin his career. I mean, am I excited about Brashad Perryman, Quincy Enunwa, and Jamison Crowder? Not overly excited.
Yes, Jake.
I want to say yes because that way if I say yes, then maybe they don't draft CeeDee Lamb, but I just have a feeling they're going wide receiver in the first round, and whoever goes there, I mean, it's like their career is over before it even starts.
Yeah, both of the New York teams are going to make sexy picks in the first round more than likely. The Giants will get Simmons. The Jets will take the best wide receiver that's sitting there.
Yep. The Philadelphia Eagles, please give Carson Wentz somebody to throw the ball to. I feel like we've talked about wide receivers a lot tonight, and I mean, deservedly so. At the end of last season, they were throwing the ball to Greg Ward Jr., and let's be realistic, 95% of people who watched NFL had no idea who the hell Greg Ward Jr. even was, and he was their leading receiver at the end of the year. Get Carson Wentz some help. They can't stay healthy all year long. They have other needs. I get it. But wide receiver is where they have to go a few times in this draft if you're Philadelphia.
If there's a quarterback out there other than Aaron Rodgers that needs more help at wide receiver, it's Carson Wentz.
Yep, agreed. I'm gonna circle back here because I realize I missed a team, so why not throw them in here? Who cares? It's the Las Vegas Raiders. Why did I have them? Because I wrote down Oakland again.
Didn't you?
God, I'm never gonna get it right. Not that it was time for Oakland anyway, but I don't know. Let's go back to the Raiders. So for the Las Vegas Raiders, another one of these teams that, I mean, I can't see them getting out of the first round making some sexy picks like we just called, right? They're moving to a new city, to a new stadium. They're in desperate need of offensive help. Get Derek Carr some weapons. There's a lot of hate out there for Derek Carr. I don't exactly understand all the hate because I'm not a Derek Carr hater, but the guy needs some wide receiving help. They need some help at the linebacker position to really give themselves a solid leader on the defensive side of the ball. So that's where I expect them to go early in the draft.
Yeah, wide receiver, 100%. I think that's a great choice for them. They could look again, linebacker if they want to, but their first option should be that wide receiver. Get themselves a number one wide receiver for the future.
Yep, Pittsburgh Steelers up now, and Pittsburgh does not have a first-round pick, but they do have some needs. Is Ben Roethlisberger healthy? Do they go quarterback at some point in this draft? Do they bring in the likes of a Jameis Winston, who's something we've talked about on this channel before that would be great in that system with Juju and James Washington and Deontay Johnson? Where do they need to go? The running back position, James Conner can't stay healthy like ever. I mean, there's some needs for Pittsburgh. The defensive side of the ball, secondary, pretty solid ever since they brought in Minkah Fitzpatrick, the reason they don't have a first-round pick, so you can't really complain about that. They have a decent pass rush there with Cameron Hayward and TJ Watt. In my opinion, they're going to be in a position where I think that they're going to look to try to improve the offensive line if possible, if there's anybody available. Otherwise, I would not be surprised if they made a splash and went somewhere in the realm of a running back or quarterback.
Yeah, I think running back and quarterback are two of those areas that they're definitely going to be looking at. They have to know at this point Big Ben doesn't have much time left, so they're going to be looking that route. Running back again, James Conner has been good when he's on the field, but how reliable do they feel he's going to be in terms of injury? So those are the two areas, and if not, then working on that interior of both lines, whether it be on the defense or the offense.
Yep. Next up, San Francisco 49ers, one of the best defenses in the league, did have some departures here in the offseason. And Richard Sherman, he's not getting any younger. They could use some help in the secondary there for the San Francisco 49ers. Another one of those teams, though, that from a fantasy football perspective, I really want to see one of these high-end running backs go to. It's one of the best running teams in football. They're going to run a lot in a scheme that is, look, it made Raheem Mostert look like the second coming of Barry Sanders. That's how great they run the ball in San Francisco. And I know you probably don't agree with that because you're a huge Barry Sanders fan. However, it was just a trying to show you the amount of success they have running the football in San Francisco. I kind of want to see a running back fall there.
Yeah, and you'd love to see a running back, but they have like 47 and a half running backs on the roster right now. I don't know who that half a running back is. That's Jerick McKinnon. But for the other positions, definitely, I think it depends on what they do in the first round. They have 2 first-round picks right now. Looking to move one, if not both of them. But if they move the early pick, then I think that late round, first round pick is going to be a cornerback, potentially, not safety, but cornerback. If they move the late one and keep the early one, I think that early one can end up being a wide receiver. But it's so deep. I would like to see them get a wide receiver, but they'll get one somewhere in the second round, probably.
Yep. Seattle Seahawks up now, and in the division that they're going to be in with the Kyler Murrays, and who knows what the offense is there for the Rams, but San Francisco and a high-powered offense, a solid running game. How does Seattle fit in that division, and how do they continue to challenge for that division without just rolling over on a yearly basis? They have a few needs. They have Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. They brought in Philip Dorsett, so I think they're okay at the wide receiver position. Running back is a huge question mark right now for the Seahawks. Is Chris Carson going to be healthy? More than likely, Rashad Penny not going to be available for the majority of the 2020 season. Do we really want to rely on Travis Homer behind one of the best rushing offenses in all of football? That's a question. I think that's something where they can look at it. They haven't really given Rashad Penny a fair chance, though, in his time there. We both loved Rashad Penny there, thinking that he could absolutely thrive in this system. Chris Carson really hasn't given him that opportunity despite fumbling 412 times. But Chris Carson, if he's healthy, he's the guy. But if he's not and they're worried, don't be surprised if Seattle adds another running back.
I do need to correct you real quick because I just checked.
What?
It was 413 times, not 412.
That last one, I thought he recovered himself.
Anyway, so yeah, I mean, them making a splash at running back would not surprise me. It wouldn't. And whoever that running back is, he immediately becomes one of the better options in football, probably at that point. Do I think they need to go that route? No, I am not rooting for them to go that route. I'm rooting for them to look at that offensive line as usual, because it seems like every single year with Seattle, we're talking about give Russell Wilson some protection. Not only that, continue to look at the defensive side of the ball as well, especially on the edge.
Right. Tampa Bay up now, and Tampa Bay's exciting, right? We got TB12 and TB. I think I just used copyrighted material somewhere. I'm sure he's got it copyrighted by now, but what are we doing in Tampa Bay? We got Godwin. We got Evans. Please, dear Lord, baby Jesus, give them a running back so I don't have to rely on Ronald Jones. Also, outside of running back, improve the offensive line. Tom Brady is not what you would call nimble or, agile in the pocket. You need to protect him. You need to give him a run game. Offensive line and running back is really all you look at in the draft if you're Tampa Bay.
If they don't draft a running back, I'm going to be insufferable, because I've been saying for weeks now about how Ronald Jones could be one of the biggest winners of this offseason. And for a channel that has used hashtag say no to Rojo for 2 straight years now, probably would have to try and convince some people to change their mind.
I saw a comment on the channel today that says, hey, you know what? You've actually convinced me about Rojo, and I about threw up. Okay. Tennessee is up now. Another one of these teams who we got a lot of people out here that we love on the Tennessee Titans. They brought back Ryan Tannehill. Love the signing. We love A.J. Brown. Maybe not as much as a lot of other people do, but still love A.J. Brown. Corey Davis, is he ever going to play football? Probably not. I mean, the offensive line, one of the best. However, they lost Jack Conklin. That's going to be a need. Why? Because they run the football a lot in Tennessee. The defense, in my opinion, solid. I'm looking straight offensive line and hoping somebody is here to kind of fill that need, that void left by Conklin, so they can continue to rely on Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I think if they go offensive line, they're going to have somebody fall for them to have that, especially at the end of the first round, be that good of a pick. So that first round pick, an edge rusher, whether it be Okawara that falls to them, or Gross Matos or Bond. One of those guys in that area, if they're looking at the interior defensive line, and some of those guys I talked about earlier as well. So yes, offensive tackle is definitely an area that I would like to see them go. One name to keep an eye on is Josh Jones out of Houston. He could end up being a guy too that could climb to that spot.
Agreed. Last one up, the Redskins. And I think everybody pretty much has Chase Young pegged for the Redskins early, which is great. They got a lot of young wide receiving talent. I don't think there's an issue there. Darius Geis in the running game, is he going to be 100% healthy? That's a question mark. But they got to stay on the defensive side of the football if you're Washington, majority of the draft.
Yep. Yeah. Offensive side of the ball. Quarterback, they keep talking about quarterbacks. I don't know why that conversation keeps popping up. They're not drafting a quarterback. So we're going to toss that out the window. But then, now you're looking at offensive tackle, wide receiver. One of those areas are going to be good for you. Chase Young wouldn't necessarily need to go to Washington, because Washington doesn't have to have an edge rusher. However, he's going to be the guy that's pegged there. And if they do anything other than draft Chase Young, they better get one heck of a haul for whatever they move out of.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they got some solid talent on that side. And like you said, for the quarterback, they got Dwayne Haskins. They just traded for Kyle Allen from Carolina. And they still technically have Alex Smith, whether he plays or not ever again after turning his leg into the Hellraiser character from a couple years back. But hey, those were all 32 teams. And it took a little bit to get through all of them. But like I said, we want to make sure we kind of switch this up a little bit. What do we want to see here? What do they need? Not just how do the pieces fall. So we didn't want to go out there and butt hurt a lot of people right before the draft. So let us know down below in the comment section, who do you think, or who do you want your favorite team to pick? If you had the choice, if you're on the clock, what selection would you make? Put it down below in the comment section. We would love to hear it. The draft's right around the corner. Like I said, just a reminder, we're live streaming 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, Thursday night, round 1. Myself, Kyle, a few other members of Headline Nation, we're all going to be here so we can watch the draft together as one big community. It's going to be a lot of fun. We did it last year, and people really enjoyed it. They were already asking early on, hey, are we doing that again? Yeah, we're doing that again because we have a lot of fun doing it. Kyle already likes to live stream and whisper and dance and sing. I'm going to try to make sure Kyle keeps that to a minimum. So don't not tune in just for that reason. But hopefully you guys have a... No, okay, I'm going to sign off here before Kyle gets into it. He's not going to whisper. If I stop talking, he's going to talk. You guys have a great rest of your night. Looking forward to Thursday. We'll talk to you later. Thanks. Have a good one. I knew you were going to say it.